Our special guest today is Corey Clayton from Edward Jones Company right here in Enid, Oklahoma. And we appreciate Corey. Corey, good to see you again. Thank you for being here. And as we try to do each and every year, the first of the year, we talk about goal setting, starting new habits, if you will, but about saving money. So here we go. Thanks for being here.
Excited to be here. Thank you.
Good morning, Corey. We're glad to have you here this morning. Like Steve was saying, January is the year for new resolutions, setting new goals. For many, it's to lose weight, but for many, many of the goals this year have to do with money, have to do with saving money. So how do we get to save money this year?
Okay. Well, so the first thing to do is kind of identify what the most important thing to a person is. So there's a lot of different ways we can save for retirement, for short-term goals, for college. So once you identify what that goal is, then we can talk about, maybe how much you want to save and how it fits into your budget. So the first thing is to just develop a plan, identify what's important, and then we have a process that goes from there to help them save.
Corey, sometimes you hear individuals say, well, I really can't save any money because I don't have X amount. And this is not a trick question, but I'm sure there's somebody that's watching this morning that, I'd really like to start saving money, but I don't have $100 a month or $1,000 a month or whatever. But I've heard people say, well, just start with $1, get into the habit of saving. So what is your recommendation in that regard? Is there a specific amount? I'm sure depending on the individual and their needs, but
yeah, I think for everyone it would be different. Usually, if your budget is tight, the first thing would do, ideally, is to work up your budget. Actually, look at where your dollars are being spent. Are there some areas where maybe you could cut back to save that $1 a month or $5 a month or whatever fits into your budget? The key to saving is getting started right away. It's just like anything else. It's like a diet. It's like exercise. It's real easy to come up with reasons why we don't have the money to do it. But until we kind of sit down, we work up our budget, we figure out what our goal is, once we do that, now we can say, okay, yeah, maybe I can afford this much each month.
And it could be just as simple as if you go out to lunch every Wednesday, don't do that and take that Wednesday lunch money, if you will, and put that into savings.
Absolutely.
So, very good.
So I have a little one. He's far from college, but I got to see a lot of family members start college this year. And it made me think, when is the right time, or when do you consider the right time for parents to start a college fund for their kids? Would it be at 2?
Well, for everybody, it's different. Some people start right at birth, and some people maybe wait later. One of the keys to saving, and I would recommend at that point, if we have 12, 14, 16 years, you probably want to not only save that money, but you want to invest that money. Because over time, that money can grow, it will compound and possibly grow, maybe even double. And we found that to save, it's going to cost you much less for school to invest it, it's going to cost you less for school than to just save it. If you're just putting it in a bank account and it's not growing with any interest, it's not working for you. And so one of the things that we do is we'll sit down with somebody and maybe they're thinking about a college plan. We want to make sure they're on track with their own retirement first. So we'll kind of review, okay, what are you doing to save for retirement? Are you on track for that? We'll make sure that they've got protection in place if something happened to them. And then we'll look at a college fund. And we know right now it's between $16,000 to $48,000 a year for a college student. So if you plan on paying for that out of pocket, the best thing you can do is start right away and probably look, meet with an advisor and figure out what a good investment for that money is.
Our special guest this morning on Good Morning Enid here at 743 is Corey Clayton. Corey's here from Enid and he works at Edward Jones Company, and we appreciate Corey sharing his expertise here at the start of the new year. As Sarah was saying, we start goals and doing new things for January. Let's, Corey, stay on the topic of college for just a moment. We had this question offered to us earlier. If you have a freshman in college, and I know they're focusing on school and just the new experiences, but is there anything that a college student can do in regards to saving money? I know they're focused on grades.
Right.
But what would you offer in that case?
Well, I think it's kind of like we talked about earlier. I think you've got to be diligent with your spending. So, you know, look at used textbooks, maybe download your textbooks. It's a little less expensive.
Spring break, stay home.
Spring break, stay home.
Sorry about that for travel folks. Yeah.
Can't, you know, you can't go out and eat. I know I just went through this experience with my own son who was off in college, and the biggest thing he had to learn was I'm on my own budget now to an extent,
Sure.
so maybe I can't go out and eat every time I want. And so it's really the key. It's a great time for them to learn how to budget their own money, maybe come up with ways where they can make a little extra money if they can work part-time. But there's no secret to it. It's spend less than what you have available to be able to save while
It's
you're
amazing how that equation works, you know.
Right. Speaking of goals, I know one of my goals this year is to pay as much as I can towards my mortgage. Do you have any advice on how anybody that's interested in doing this can reach their goal?
Sure. So there's a couple of things you can do when it comes to paying down a mortgage. The first thing you want to make sure of is that your mortgage doesn't have a penalty for pre-repayment. There's a few out there that if you pay down early, you might even pay a penalty for that. You can set it up to pay biweekly. That might cut on a 30-year mortgage. That could cut up to 8 years off of your mortgage. You could even look to refinance it from a 30-year note to a 15-year note if the interest rates make sense and the payment's affordable. But I would say everyone might be different, and paying down your mortgage isn't necessarily always the best move. Again, it would go back to sitting down, looking at their individual situation, because let's say you had quite a bit of money sitting in cash and it was invested and growing at an average 6 or 7% a year, and you had a mortgage where you were paying, you know, 2, 3, 4% on it, and with the new tax changes, this may not be as effective, but you're actually getting, you know, some deductions there, possibly on the interest of the house. If you keep your money investment and let your money help pay that mortgage, when you're done, you still have that money available. So for everybody, it could be a little bit different. I'm not saying, hey, don't pay down your mortgage. I'm saying you want to look at your full financial picture and see what you'll gain by, you know, eliminating that payment versus maybe putting that money. Let's say you haven't saved enough for retirement and you get your house paid off and you're ready to retire. Where's your income going to come from if you haven't put enough aside to be able to draw from and live on in retirement? So for everyone, it might be a little bit different, but there are definitely some ways you can save and pay off your mortgage early and get rid of that monthly payment.
Yeah, that's my goal one day.
We've talked about education or higher education, talked about mortgages. Let's talk about weddings for a little bit. There's a wedding show coming up in Enid here, I believe, next weekend. So how do you go about saving for a wedding? Same process?
Process isn't a whole lot different. You know, I've actually got some clients who, as soon as their daughters were born, they set up an account, and just when they have some extra money, they'll put a little bit in it each month. And that's kind of been earmarked. Someday it'll either be for a wedding, for school, for a car, whatever they feel necessary, but they know with that new child that they're going to have some expenses down the road. And so again, by investing that money when they're 1 or 2 years old, that money can actually be working for them instead of just having to pull it out of your bank account at the time you need it.
So what I'm hearing you say is if you have one child, you save for the one person. If you have 5 children, you just multiply that 5 times, right?
Good luck.
Yeah,
You have
good
fun.
luck with that. Okay, thank you.
For the grandparents that are out there watching us this morning, is there anything that they can do in regards to saving money for their grandkids?
Yeah, so we see that quite a bit. You know, they can set up, there's college fund accounts where grandparents are eligible to contribute. There's even, you know, they can gift up to $14,000 per child a year, and that's not taxable to the child or to the family. They can set up what's called a custodian account for the kids. And so it's a way, you know, that they can help for the future, whether that's for a wedding in the future or for college in the future. So there are definitely some ways to save, and that's actually a pretty common thing we see because the grandparents, you know, may be at a place where they have more disposable income while the parents are still working to try to raise the kids, and the grandparents say, well, I'll chip in and help. We try to encourage that, you know, with our own family. Instead of, you know, a bunch of toys and things around the house, why not, you know, just take that money and put it somewhere where they can actually use it later on in life.
Corey, we're going to have to take a short break in just a moment, but I have one more question before we move to another segment of the show. Say you're 45, 55, 65, and you really haven't been disciplined to save money. What's your advice?
So I would say you want to try to start right away. Again, my recommendation would be to possibly sit down with somebody, try to establish what your goal for that savings is. Is this money you want to use when you retire? Is this money you want for a short-term goal? Once you identify what you're wanting to save that money for, then that advisor can help put a plan in place for you. But the sooner you start, the more that money can work for you.